Mr. David Iweta joins us next. He's the president, Sapele Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as we continue our focus on the economy. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, sir.
Well, we were talking about the states, what we need to do to ensure that things go on well. The Chamber of Commerce and Industry, how you guys faring? What's happening with the industry?
I think the Chamber of Commerce, being the voice of the organized private sector in the country, is not properly taken along in formulating government policies and decisions. And that actually has affected the growth of the economy so greatly. And except the federal government and the state governments consider changing their policies of speaking to themselves and decide to engage the private sector, that are the real operators and those that are embedded with the responsibility of creating jobs, that the government is shouting job creation, without carrying the operators, the executors of the policies that they are formulating. Because if you formulate policy and the operators of the of the policy is not carried along with you, how would he know the medium of formulating that policy for him to execute the policy you've put in place?
When you say carried along, what do you mean?
Fine. Now, in the areas of even the military government, there is what is called a pre-budget dinner by the federal government and the private sector operators. I mean, the Manufacturers Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and NECA. This will be done. The inputs of the private sector are properly considered in the budget formulation. And when the budget is passed and operated for about 3-4 months, there will be a post-budget dinner with the president of the country. This started even at the period of Babangida as a military head of state. But over the years, as politics came in, because there were people who have gone in as half-baked business people in politics, they know everything, but with the intention of loading their pockets with the money that they put in the budget without really considering the economy that are the receiving end of the consequences of the budget they put in place.
Are the states doing any better?
The states are even worse than what the federal government is doing, because the politics at the state level are actually what is supposed to be made more vibrant and reliable for the economy. Because the federal government, as far as I'm concerned, should not be held responsible for the non-performance of the economy of Nigeria. The state government, the local government are the ones that should drive the economy of this country. The federal government should make policies not with too much money consideration.
Let's go back to the policies you highlighted for businesses. You know, the Chamber of Commerce, and as well as so many other businesses, importers and business persons, looking at some of the government's policies. How has that affected businesses, especially in the non-oil sector?
Excellent. Now, today, the CBN came up with a policy. First, that there is a 300 billion naira for real sector support fund. And by that, they have said the interest rate is targeted at 9%. The central bank is making a profit on interest at 3% and give the commercial banks to charge 6% interest, and that is a total of 9% interest. And at that, the commercial banks are not interested in supporting an entrepreneur to access that fund, because they are mandated to issue a treasury bill to cover the totality of the loan that the commercial bank is giving or applying from that 300 billion on behalf of the entrepreneur. And the commercial bank is not ready to take that loan risk on behalf of their customer, because the CBN is not taking any risk. So the risk bearer is the commercial banks. If you are saying you are bringing in intervention fund, the intervention fund should be such that the CBN will bear at least 50% of the risk and the commercial bank 50% of the risk. So if you say we are giving you 5 billion naira, give us a treasury bill worth 2.5 billion, we will take the other 2.5 billion as a non-covered risk on the part of the commercial bank, then there's a 50-50 equity play with the commercial bank. They will be interested because if they do not issue their treasury bill at 6% to CBN, they can trade that same treasury bill at a higher interest rate in another financial market. So why would they go fund your long-term investment for 15 years with the money they could convert in an oil business for 3 months, 6 months, and they do their turnaround and earn their money? And I tell you, the non-oil export problem is that the government is asking me to borrow from a commercial bank at 25-35% interest rate and produce natural rubber and export to US or Europe, compared to Malaysia that has 2 to 6% interest rate to process same rubber and export to the same market. And having taken 35% interest rate from Nigerian commercial bank to process rubber and export to Europe or America, you want me to bring that money back and sell to you at official rate at 197, not at 345, which is the parallel exchange rate. So I am disadvantaged in Nigeria as an exporter to assess high interest rates, to run my generator, to produce rubber, and export to Europe, and export to America. While the guy from Malaysia is having a single-digit interest rate of about 6% to produce that same commodity and export to that competing market.
Because that's in their own country.
Yes.
Is this still at 35%? I thought they were reviewing it downward.
Yeah, when they are reviewing it downward, you see, they give the policy by this hand, and then they take the money, the charges, indirectly by the other hand. So I can tell you the problem we have in the country, first, the kind of cabal in the banking sector is worse than what is in other economies, other aspects of the economy. Because today, the CBN and the commercial banks, they are all leprous fingers of one hand. They all know where it is, where it begins, and where it should end. And except the private sector and the government will come with absolute and pragmatic approach to say, hey, you banks, you have the responsibility to drive the economy.
What exactly are they doing that you don't like? We must be specific now.
Good. The commercial banks will tell you they don't fund manufacturing, the real sector, as at today. And therefore, the real sector are going to 0 point.
Meaning they don't give what? Loans?
They don't, that's fund. Yeah, they don't give loan to manufacturing. Okay? And they will only give you working capital. And the banks, ordinarily like what it is in other economies, where you can have the land and you have plant and machinery to import, and you bring into that very business establishment, they accept what is called all asset debenture. Okay? And what the bank will now provide is working capital.
I'm just a little curious though. What has been the role of these interventionist banks? For instance, the Bank of Industry, the Bank of Agriculture. Have you found them useful?
Fine. The Bank of Industry is one bank that is making progress in developing the economy. Okay? But the conditions and the duration for loan approval is a bit long, and they also will require you to provide 2 collateral for one application. If you're asking for 10 million, for example, you will give a collateral worth more than that 10 million. They will ask you to provide another collateral, a second collateral for that same fund. And they do not fund the infrastructure, I mean the buildings. They will only finance but the plant and machineries. And that is okay. The commercial banks that should give you the working capital will give it to you at an interest rate that is not competitive in the international market where your own commodity would be exported to.
So are you saying that we should also find banks, that should government also be looking for interventionist banks that can also give working capital? Because some people will say that has not worked in the past.
You see, the commercial bank should be made to play their traditional role as lending to entrepreneurs. Okay, but today, the bank have no appetite for real sector of the economy, for manufacturing, for agriculture. In fact, there is hardly a bank that is supporting agriculture in this country. And the kind of fund, 75 billion naira that is given to NISA.
Well, but there's a
Bank for Agriculture.
Yeah, and then there's this fund. I think I heard the Minister of Agriculture talking about it. That they wanted, I think, 5% interest rates for funds for agriculture, and they were working towards that.
Yeah, I am glad about what you said. They are working
Because it was at
towards
9%.
that. Yes.
But he said he wanted it at 5%.
Fine. You see, asking agricultural loan to be at 5% is even on the high side, but you cannot even get it. It's all stories.
No, but 5% is what he says is obtainable across the
Now,
world.
I tell you, sir, if you go to economies like Malaysia that have succeeded greatly in agriculture, they approach the World Bank and obtain loan at single digit as 1 or 2%. And they come into their own economy, they go to a whole community and acquire the land on behalf of the people that dwell in the community, use that loan to purchase earth-moving equipment to prepare the entire land for farming. The government also procure the seedlings and distribute to the farmers, and also issue to them the operational fund for weeding until it gets to harvest. And when it gets to harvest, what they do, there's a central buying house, like we used to have in Nigeria in those days, called commodity boards, that had been demolished. So as the people do not have, in any form, a marketing problem for their produce.